In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and upon those in the tombs bestowing life. Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and upon those in the tombs bestowing life. Christ is risen from the dead, trampling down death by death, and upon those in the tombs bestowing life. All right, so we're going to go through the Gospel of Matthew, but I'm going to suggest you keep your own Bibles with you. So if you have one nearby, I would suggest getting it, because we're going to bounce back and forth. At least today, we're going to bounce back and forth between Matthew and Genesis, because we're going to look at the genealogy. So that's where we're going to go. All right. Yeah, so we'll just start, and we're not going to go very far. So the first verse is the book of the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Before we go there, what does that mean? Son of what? Who's Jesus's father? God is Jesus's father. So, and is David the father or the son of Abraham?
No.
No. So what's going on there? What is that?
He's in the line.
Yeah, so it's a bloodline. Okay, it's a bloodline. So when you take a look at the prophetic expectations in the Old Testament, what you have is that Isaiah says that something will shoot up, a root will shoot up from the stump of Jesse, and basically saying that that's going to be the Messiah is going to come from Jesse's lineage. Okay, so the son in this case is just indicating a familial connection. All right, and we'll go to see who who Jesus is, or who Abraham and David are connected to at the end of the reading of this genealogy. Okay, so the book of genealogy of Jesus Christ, and the son of David, the son of Abraham. So the very first word after that in verse 2 is Abraham. Okay. So Albert, why don't you look at Genesis 12:1, and why don't you just start reading?
Now the Lord said to Abram, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who curses you I will curse. And by you all the families of the earth shall bless themselves. So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed from Haran. And Abram took Sarai his wife, and Lot his brother's son, and all their possessions which they had gathered, and the persons that they had gotten in Haran, and they set forth to go on to the land of Canaan. When they had come to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem, to the oak of Moreh. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, to your descendants I will give this land. So he built there an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. Thence he removed to the mountain on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent, with Bethel on the west and Ai on the east. There he built an altar to the Lord and called on the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed on, still going toward the Negeb. Now there was a famine in the land.
You can probably stop right there for right now. So what we have then is beginning of the relationship of God and his people. Okay. Now we know stories of Adam and Eve. We know stories of Noah and others of older line, but this is really the beginning of people calling on the name of the Lord. Abram is the father of the Jewish people. He establishes a covenant, God does, between Abram, who later becomes Abraham, and himself. So in the Gospel of Matthew, the priority is relationship to covenants. And so this is the beginning. This is where everyone begins to live under in relationship with God. This is when people begin to be circumcised amongst the men. The practice of sacrifice happens at this point. So all of these different things are the beginning of the covenantal relationship between God and the Hebrew people. Okay, so and Abraham's the father of all of that. So the very first word that we have in the genealogy of Jesus, Abraham. Okay. All right. Now let's move on. Oh, nice. Huh. Okay. So let's look at Genesis 18 for the next names. The first one is Abraham, then the second one will come in a little bit. So Genesis 18, first one.
And the Lord appeared to him by the oaks of Mamre, as he sat at the door of his tent in the heat of the day. He lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, 3 men stood in front of him. When he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and bowed himself to the earth and said, My Lord, if I have found favor in your sight, do not pass by your servant. Let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, rest yourselves under the tree, while I fetch a morsel of bread, that you may refresh yourself. And after that you may pass on, since you have come to your servant. So they said, Do as you have said. And Abraham hastened into the tent to Sarah and said, Make ready quickly 3 measures of fine meal, and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd and took a calf, tender and good, and gave it to the servant, who hastened to prepare it. Then he took curds and milk, and the calf which he had prepared, set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree while they ate.
Keep going.
They said to him, Where is Sarah, your wife? And he said, She is in the tent. The Lord said, I will surely return to you in the spring, and Sarah, your wife, shall have a son. And Sarah was listening at the tent door behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, advanced in age, and had ceased to be with Sarah after the manner of women. So Sarah laughed to herself, saying, After I have grown old, and my husband is old, shall I have pleasure? The Lord said to Abraham, Why did Sarah laugh and say, Shall I indeed bear a child now that I am old? Is anything too hard for the Lord? At the appointed time I will return to you in the spring. Sarah shall have a son. Sarah denied, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. He said, No, but you did laugh.
Okay, stop right there. Okay, so give me 1 second. Go to 21. Chapter 21.
The Lord visited Sarah as he had said, and the Lord did to Sarah as he had promised. And Sarah conceived, for Abraham in his old age at the time of which God had spoken to him. Abraham called the name of his son who was born to him, whom Sarah bore him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born to him. And Sarah said, God has made laughter for me. Everyone who hears will laugh over me. And she said, Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would suckle children? Yet I have borne him a son in his old age.
Thank you. Okay, so this is the birth of Isaac. Isaac in Hebrew means laughter. Okay, so Sarah laughed when the angel said that she was going to conceive and bear a son. And so the name is representative of her reaction to what Abraham's was promised would happen, that he would have a son. Now remember the covenant. The covenant is that Abraham was to take his possessions, anything that could go with him, and go into the promised land. And God said, I will make of you a great nation. So Isaac is the only way that he would have this great nation. Now there is the child of Hagar named Ishmael, but there are all sorts of complexities there because it was basically a situation where Sarah thought that it would be impossible for her to bear a child, so she set it up so that Hagar would be the one to give Abraham a child. It didn't work out that way because that's not what God said or God intended. So all of that is to say that now we have two of the lineage. We have Abraham, and now we have Isaac, who is his son, who was born of Abraham and Sarah when Abraham was 100 years old. That's very old. Okay, so Sarah dies. And then Isaac meets Rebecca. So let's go to 24. Wait, before you do that. Okay. So let's go ahead and look at let's look at Genesis 24.
Now Abraham was old, well advanced in years, and the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. And Abraham said to his servant, the oldest of his house, who had charge of all that he had, put your hand under my thigh, and I will make you swear by the Lord, the God of heaven and of the earth, you will not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites, among whom I dwell, but will go into my country and to my kindred, and take a wife for my son Isaac. The servant said to him, perhaps the woman may not be willing to follow me to this land. Must I then take your son back to the land from which you came? And Abraham said to him, see to it that you do not take my son back. The Lord, the God of heaven, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my birth, and who spoke to me and swore to me, to your descendants I will give this land. He will send his angel before you. You shall take a wife for my son from there. But if the woman is not willing to follow you, then you will be free from this oath of mine. Only you must not take my son back there. So the servant put his hand under the thigh of Abraham his master, and swore to him concerning this matter. Then the servant took 10 of his master's camels and departed, taking all sorts of choice gifts from his master. And he arose and went to Mesopotamia, to the city of Nahor. And he made the camels kneel down outside the city by the well of water at the time of evening, the time when women go out to draw water. And he said, O Lord God of my master Abraham, grant me success today. I pray thee, and show steadfast love to my master Abraham. Behold, I am standing by the spring of water, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Let the maiden to whom I shall say, pray down your jar that I may drink, and who shall say, drink, and I will water your camels. Let her be the one whom thou hast appointed my servant Isaac. By this I shall know that thou hast shown steadfast love to my master. Because he had done speaking, behold, Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out with her water jar upon her shoulder. The maiden was very fair to look upon, a virgin whom no man had known. She went down to the spring and lifted her jar and came up. Then the servant ran to meet her and said, pray give me a little water to drink from your jar. She said, drink, my lord. And she quickly let down her jar upon her hand and gave him a drink. When she had finished giving him a drink, she said, I will draw for your camels also until they have done drinking. So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough and ran again to the well to draw, and she drew for all his camels. The man gazed at her in silence to learn whether the Lord had prospered his journey or not. When the camels had done drinking, the man took a gold ring weighing a half shekel and 2 bracelets for her arms weighing 10 gold shekels, and said, tell me whose daughter you are. Is there room in your father's house for us to lodge in? She said to him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor. She added, we have both straw and provender enough, and room to lodge in. The man bowed his head and worshipped the Lord, and said, Blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his steadfast love and his faithfulness toward my master. As for me, the Lord has led me in the way to the house of my master's kinsman. Then the maiden ran and told her mother's household about these things.
Okay, that's it for right now. So, all right. So now this is the story of Isaac's marriage to Rebecca. Okay, so they have Abraham and Sarah, and now it's Isaac and Rebecca. Okay, so the second generation. Now we're going to take a look at the birth of her children. I can find it relatively quickly. Well, we can look now at Genesis 25, verse 19. Okay.
These are the descendants of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old, and he took to wife Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Padan, the sister of Laban, the Aramean. And Isaac prayed to the Lord for his wife, because she was barren. And the Lord granted his prayer, and Rebekah, his wife, conceived. Children struggled together within her, and she said, If this is thus, why do I live? So she went to inquire of the Lord, and the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples born of you shall be divided, and one shall be stronger than the other. The elder shall serve the younger. When her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. The first came forth red, all his body like a hairy mantle. So they called his name Esau. Afterward, his brother came forth, and his hand had been taken hold of Esau's heel. So his name was called Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them.
Keep going.
When the boys grew up, Esau was a skillful hunter, a man of the field. Jacob was a quiet man, dwelling in tents. Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Once when Jacob was boiling pottage, Esau came in from the sea, and he was famished. And Esau said to Jacob, Eat some of that red pottage, for I am famished. Therefore his name was called Edom. Jacob said, First sell me your birthright. Esau said, I am about to die. Of what use is the birthright to me? Jacob said, Swear to me first. So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob saw bread and pottage of lentils, and he ate and drank, and rose and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright.
Okay. Let me see. Yes. Okay. So what we have here now is Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and also Esau, but Jacob is the one of primary attention for right now. So the 2 brothers contend. They're not ones to get along very well. So let's go on to Genesis 27. This is a dramatic story between Jacob and Esau. And listen to what happens here. I find this so amazing because of the duplicity involved. It's pretty remarkable. All right, go ahead, if you don't mind.
When Isaac was old, and his eyes were dim so that he could not see, he called Esau his older son, and said to him, My son, and he answered, Here I am. He said, Behold, I am old. I do not know the day of my death. Now then, take your weapons, your quiver, and your bow, and go out into the field and hunt game for me, and prepare for me savory food, such as I love, and bring it to me that I may bless you before I die. Now Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to his son Esau. So when Esau went to the field to hunt for game, bring it, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, I heard your father speak to your brother Esau. Bring me game and prepare for me savory food, and I may eat it and bless you before the Lord before I die. Now therefore, my son, obey my word as I command you. Go to the flock and fetch me kids, that I may prepare from them savory food for your father, such as he loves. And you shall bring it to your father to eat, that he may bless you before he dies. But Jacob said to Rebekah his mother, Behold, my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I shall be seen to be mocking him, and bring a curse upon myself and not a blessing. His mother said to him, Upon me be your curse, my son. Only obey my word and go fetch them to me. So he went and took them and brought them to his mother, and his mother prepared savory food, such as his father loved. Then Rebekah took the best garments of Esau, her older son, which were with her in the house, and put them on Jacob, her younger son. And the skins of the kid she put upon his hands, and upon the smooth part of his neck. And she gave the savory food and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. So he went in to his father and said, My father. And he said, Here I am. Who are you, my son? Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Now sit up and eat of my game, that you may bless me. But Isaac said to his son, How is it that you have found it so quickly, my son? He answered, Because the Lord your God granted me success. Then Isaac said to Jacob, Come near that I may feel you, my son, to know whether you are really my son Esau or not. So Jacob went near to Isaac his father, who felt him and said, The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he did not recognize him, because his hands were hairy, like his brother's Esau hands. So he blessed him. He said, Are you really my son Esau? He answered, I am. And he said, Bring it to me that I may eat of my son's game and bless you. So he brought it to him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. Then his father Isaac said to him, Come near and kiss me, my son. He came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his garments, and blessed him, and said, See, the smell of my son is the smell of a field which the Lord has blessed. May the God give you the dew and the fatness of the earth, and plenty of grain and wine. Let the people serve you, and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you. As soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, when Jacob had scarcely gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, Esau his brother came in. He also prepared savory food and brought it to his father. And he said to his father, Let my father arise and eat of his son's game, that you may bless me. His father Isaac said to him, Who are you? He answered, I am your son, your firstborn Esau. Then Isaac trembled violently and said, Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it all before you came, and I have blessed him. Yes, and he shall be blessed. When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried out with an exceedingly great and bitter cry, and said to his father, Bless even me also, my father. But he said, Your brother came with guile, and he has taken away your blessing. Esau said, Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he was taken away my blessing. Then he said, Have you not reserved the blessing for me? Isaac answered Esau, Behold, I have made him your Lord, and all his brothers I have given to him for service, and with grain and wine I have sustained him. What then can I do for you, my son? Esau said to his father, Have you but one blessing, my father? Bless me also O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. Then Isaac his father answered him, Behold, away from the fatness of the earth shall your dwelling be, and away from the dew of heaven on high. By your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. For when you break loose, you shall break his yoke from your neck. Now Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing which with his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, Days of mourning for my father are approaching. Then I will kill my brother Jacob.
Thank you. Okay, so we can stop there for now. So now we see this contentious relationship between Jacob and Esau. We see that his mother, Jacob's mother, or actually both their mothers, favored Jacob. And so she engaged in duplicity to make sure that Jacob is the one that receives the birthright. Now, you may or may not know this, but Jacob's second name, like Abram was named Abraham, Sarai was named Sarah. Jacob's name is Israel. So Jacob has become Israel, and Israel, of course, is a name that stays with us to this day.
So without the blessing,
right,
the birthright didn't end.
That's right. Yes, but he got them both.
He got them both.
Yep. So this creates obviously a difficult situation where Jacob runs away, goes into hiding, tries to avoid coming anywhere close to Esau because Esau will kill him. So he flees. This is the time when we have Jacob's vision of the ladder, where you have angels and ascending and descending on the ladder. You ever heard of that, Jacob's ladder?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, the icon is there's one of him, and there's also the ladder of divine ascent by St. John Climacus. They look very, very similar. Okay, so Jacob then flees. He meets up with his mother's brother and falls in love with his daughters. Well, one daughter in particular, Rachel. Okay. So part of what happens is because he is in love with Rachel, he tries to work out negotiation with his uncle, Laban, and Laban strikes a deal with him that if he works in his field for 7 years, he'll give him his daughter. So he goes and works as an indentured servant for 7 years. And then he says, well, it's not fair that my oldest daughter should be not married and my youngest daughter should be married. So I'm going to give you my oldest daughter in marriage, Leah. And that's not what Jacob wanted. So Laban says, well, if you want her too, you have to work another 7 years. So Jacob works another 7 years, and he actually would have both sisters as his wives. So obviously things are slightly different then than they are now. Okay, but why don't you go to 29, verse 31. And again, Leah is the oldest daughter, the one that Jacob's not so fond with. And then Rachel is the younger daughter.
When the Lord saw that Leah was hated, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben. For she said, because the Lord has looked upon my affliction, surely now my husband will love me. She conceived again and bore a son, and said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me a son also. She called his name Simeon. Again she conceived and bore a son and said, now this time my husband will be joined to me, because I have borne him 3 sons. Therefore his name was called Levi. And she conceived again and bore a son, and said, this time I will praise the Lord. Therefore she called his name Judah. Then she ceased bearing.
Okay, stop right there. So she has 4 children at this point. All right, the oldest one is Reuben. And then after Reuben, we have Simeon. And then after Simeon, we have Levi. And then after Levi, we have Judah. Okay. So you may have heard of Levites, right? The Levites are the priestly order of the people of God. Well, this is he is the patriarch of the priesthood, Levi. well, not necessarily the priesthood, but the Levites are the ones that attend to the temple.
So how many generations from Levi to Aaron and Moses?
Well, we're going to keep going, and we'll find out. Yep. Well, maybe we'll find out. Maybe not. This is one of those more difficult things as we go through. We only have what's been written down. But by the time we get to the fourth child, we get Judah. Okay, now, if you look at what does it say? It's from the root of Jesse, but Judah is the forefather of Jesse. Okay, so the fourth son of Jacob, okay, is the line through which David comes, and then the line through which the Messiah comes. All right, and we'll talk about this a little bit more. I don't know if we'll get to it today, to be honest with you, because here we are, we're at the fourth level now, and we've got a long way to go. There's 14 levels before we get to David, right? So, all right, let me look ahead here. So, these children are born. There are 12 children total that are born to Jacob, okay? And we get the 12 tribes of Israel from those, okay? There's Joseph. We know Joseph well. We'll look at that in a minute. Benjamin, Naphtali, Zebulun. They're all children of Abraham. These are also words that are used later on to indicate kingdoms, lands around and about Judea, part of the promised land, because each one of the sons got land out of the splitting up of the promised land. So Jacob tricks Laban into giving him all his livestock, and God helps him because Laban says you can have all the spotted animals, and all of a sudden all the animals are spotted. You can have all the striped ones, all of a sudden all of them are striped. So God provides from the spoils of Laban to go to Israel, Jacob. Jacob also makes friends with his brother Esau, ultimately. So that's another part of this account. Now, I don't want to read about that.
Is there no chart made, like a genealogy chart, like at the top, and this, and this, and this?
No, I've never seen one. Never seen one. And so I think part of the reason why, Debbie, is because when we go from Joseph to Moses, there's a discontinuity there. There are generations there that take place, and we're going to need to look at that a little closer. But to my recollection, we don't have a tie-in. Maybe we do, but let me look over and I'll let you know. So almost to the end of Genesis at this point. Yeah, there is no tracking of the children. We'll talk about that when we get to Exodus. We're getting there close. Okay, so well, that's the genealogy of Esau. So let's look at the 12 sons of Jacob. That's Genesis 35, verse 23.
What verse?
23.
Oh,
What is a car? Could be where it comes from. Hear them mention it.
No, there are 12 total. Okay. I only had you read 4 because we stopped at Judah, but there are other children that are born of other women. Benjamin and Joseph are born of Rachel. What's that?
Leah, who after Judah then.
Okay. Yep. Okay. Debbie, do you want to read?
Now the sons of Jacob were 12. The sons of Leah, Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's maid, Dan and Naphtali. The sons of Zilpah, Leah's maid, Gad and Asher. These were the sons of Jacob who were born to him in Paddan and Aram.
Okay. Well, that's so that tells us all of the different sons that were born of to Jacob through 4 different women. Okay, let's go to chapter 38. This gets a little messy. But it's part, and this is one of those things that we have to understand. And part of why we're doing this is because, it's not pristine. It's not like everybody's happy with each other. It's not like things are done decently in order. There are all sorts of different things that go on. So let's take a look. This is Judah and Tamar.
What happened to the brother?
Which brother? Which one?
Esau?
Esau? Yeah. There is a country called Edom. Okay, so he settles in Edom. It's named after him. He was called Esau, also known as Edom. So so Jacob and Esau do make up. They repair their relationship in a sense. But as you go on in the a telling of the relationship between the nation of Israel and the nation of Edom, they are generally at war with each other rather consistently.
But he had no kids.
Oh, he had tons of kids. He had a ton of kids.
Right,
there's actually a genealogy. Yeah, there's a genealogy of Esau, but partly we're not going to read that because it's not having to do with what Jesus comes from. Okay, but yeah, there's a whole lineage of Edom as well. Okay, so let's look at chapter 38. You want me to read? Or do you want to read? You can read. Go ahead.
It happened at that time that Judah, down from his wife, turned into a Adullamite,
sure,
whose name was Hira. Then Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite named Shua. He married her and went into her, and she conceived and bore a son, and he called his name Er. Again she conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Onan. Yet again she bore a son, and she called his name Shelah. She was in Chezib, and she bore him. And Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was wicked in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord slew him. Then Judah said to Onan, "Go into your brother's wife and perform the duty of a brother-in-law to her. Raise up offspring for your brother." But Onan knew that the offspring would not be his. So when he went into his brother's wife, he spilled the semen on the ground, lest he should give offspring to his brother. And what he did was displeasing in the sight of the Lord, and he slew him also. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, "Remain a widow in your father's house till Shelah, my son, grows up." And he feared that he would die like his brothers. So Tamar went off and dwelt in her father's house. In the course of time, the wife of Judah, Shua's daughter, died. And when Judah was comforted, he went up to Timnah to his sheep shearers, he and his friend Hira and Adullamite. When Tamar was told her father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep, she put off her widow's garments and put on a veil, wrapping herself up, and sat at the entrance to Enaim, which is on the road to Timnah, where she saw that Shelah was grown up, and she had not been given to him in marriage. When Judah saw her, he thought her to be a harlot, and she had covered her face. He went over to her at the side of the road and said, "Come, let me come in to you." For he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. She said, "What will you give me to come in to me?" He answered, "I will send you a kid from the flock." And he said, "Will you give me a pledge till you send it?" He said, "What pledge shall I give you?" She replied, "Your signet and your cord and your staff that is in your hand." So he gave them to her and went into her, and she conceived by him. Then she arose and went away, and taking off her veil, she put on the garments of her widowhood. When Judah sent the kid by his friend the Adullamite to receive the pledge from the woman's hand, he could not find her. And he asked the men of the place, "Where's the harlot who was at Enaim by the wayside?" And they said, "No harlot has been here." So he returned to Judah and said, I've not found her. And also the men of the place said, no harlot has been here. And Judah replied, let her keep the things as found, lest we be laughed at. I sent this kid, and you could not find her. About 3 months later, Judah was told, Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has played the harlot, and moreover, she is with child by harlotry. And Judah said, bring her out and let her be burned. As she was being brought out, she sent word to her father-in-law, by the man to whom these belong, I am with child. And she said, Mark, I pray you, whose they are, the signet and the cord and the staff. Then Judah acknowledged them and said, she is more righteous than I, inasmuch I did not give her to my son Shelah, and he did not lie with her again. When the time of her delivery came, there were twins in her womb, and when she was in labor, one put out a hand, and the midwife took and bound on his hand a scarlet thread, saying, this came out first. But as he drew back his hand, behold, his brother came out, and she said, what a breach you have made for yourself. Therefore his name was called Perez. Afterward, his brother came out with a scarlet thread upon his hand, and his name was Sarah.
Thank you. Okay, we'll stop right there. That's fun. So we already have, we're at 4 generations and all sorts of weird intrigue is taking place. And
no girls were ever born. These were all...
Well, they only talk about the boys. Okay, girls are born for sure, but they're just, when they talk about the lineage, for the most part. Now, in the Gospel of Matthew, there are a couple of women that are included in the mentioning, but yeah, Tamar is one. So we have some connections, but obviously this is not, it's not pristine. It's very messy. It's very, very messy. It's not pretty at all. So Abraham begot, this is Matthew chapter 1, verse 2. Abraham begot Isaac. Isaac begot Jacob. Jacob begot Judah and his brothers. Judah begot Perez and Zerah by Tamar. Okay, that's as far as we've gotten, which is about halfway through verse 3. Okay, so we still have a ways to go. All right, but you want to know who these people are? These are who these people are. They are involved in all sorts of interesting things, fighting with their brothers, intrigue, fornication. It's all over the place. And God blesses these people to give us some hope and optimism, if you ask me. Now, just to kind of get a sense of what's going on here, this is it's right in the middle. This is like an intermission, okay, of the tailing of Joseph. Right? Because Joseph has already been kidnapped and thrown into Egypt by this time. And then Judah goes off and does this stuff. And then we go back to Joseph. Okay. Now also remember, Judah is the direct descendant of Joseph, Jesus's foster father. Okay. Direct descendant. So you can see that things are not as pristine as we would like to think they are. Okay, because through Perez, that's the next one to go in this line. Perez is, we have the connection with our Lord. So hold on one second. Let me see if I can backtrack a little bit. Does anyone have any questions? It's a good place to stop and ask questions. Okay. So we have Joseph and his dreams, how he brings his brothers and their families. Okay.
Did you call Tamar a harlot?
Would I call Tamar a harlot? The problem with Tamar is that she was being disrespected by Judah. That she deserved.
Judah say, I didn't recognize her.
Right. Well, she intentionally tricked him, just like Rachel tricked Judah. Or not Judah. Like, you buy what?
Don't you recognize people you know? Would you recognize your daughter-in-law?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he had really bad eyesight.
Could
A
be.
bigger question is, what is he doing deciding to have, relations with a harlot? I think that's a bigger question. I wouldn't blame her. I'd blame him.
Was this after Rachel died?
Yes. Well, this isn't Rachel. This is the son.
No, this is son.
This is Judah and Rachel's, or not Judah and Leah's son. No, try it again. Jacob and Leah's son Judah, who's doing all of this.
And who was his wife? Wait, I lost. Judah was married to who?
Well, let's go back.
She was daughter, but I don't know her name. She died.
She did.
Well, yeah, there.
Her name was Shua. Okay, she conceived and bore a son named and then had Onan and Shelah.
Yeah,
okay.
Excuse.
And then he also had Tamar is not his daughter; it's his son's daughter.
Yeah, she was.
Okay, but dies. And then Onan is supposed to see. Remember, this is what the Sadducees are trying to pester Jesus about. That there was a man who had a wife, and then she bore him no sons, and he died. And then there was another brother, and so the responsibility fell on him, and he died. And so the second, the third, the fourth, on all the way to the seventh. So in heaven, to whom is she wife?
They just didn't die. Said he slew because they didn't listen.
Well, yeah, but still, it's still the same thing. The idea is that in this way of thinking, the wife is responsible for carrying on the bloodline for the first person she marries. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Okay, so the first person she marries is and if they don't bear any children, then she's given over to the next oldest brother, and then it's expected that she has children by him, but not for him, but for the older brother.
Right.
Okay, and that's why we have this story about the one who doesn't perform his duties appropriately, spills his seed on the ground, and is killed because some people say it's because he did it without. Yeah, but that's not it. What it is that God told him to do something and he refused to do it. He disobeyed God, not because he was pleasuring himself or whatever, not to get overly gross. Sorry. Yeah, this is fun. But it's messy. See how messy this is? It's terribly messy. And it doesn't get any better. Okay? It's either relations and family members or problems with wars outside of it. All right, so we have Joseph's story. Joseph is bringing his family, all of his family, to Egypt because of a famine. Okay? After Joseph makes his appearance known to Pharaoh and falls in good graces with Pharaoh, then he goes and has these dreams where there's famine coming and so on. So he helps to save all of his people by bringing them down to good. Bringing them down to Egypt. Bear with me for a second. I need to look up something. It's good. Okay. Let's go to 46 verse 12. Genesis 46 verse 12. And just read that particular passage right there. Just verse 12.
The sons of Judah, Onan, Shelah, and Zikri. But and Onan died in the land of Canaan. And the sons of Perez were Hezron and Hamul.
That's it. Okay. Hezron and Hamul are the next ones. Yep. So Hezron is the next name that we have in the genealogy. So Perez begot Hezron. And then the next one we have is Hezron begot Ram. So now let's go find Ram.
What is that?
Okay, so hold on 1 second. Okay. So let's find Ram. Okay, let's go to First Chronicles.
All right.
What page are we on?
Well, I'm going to read 16. That's chapter 1. Where are we going in Chronicles?
2:9.
2:9.
First Chronicles 2:9.
Page 358.
Okay, so also the sons of Hezron who were born to him were Jerahmeel, Ram, our person of interest, and Chilubai. Ram begot Aminadab. Aminadab begot Nahshon, leader of the children of Judah. Nahshon begot Salma. Salma begot Boaz. Boaz begot Obed. Obed begot Jesse. So then we go back. Ram begot Aminadab. Aminadab begot Nahshon. Nahshon begot Salmon. Salmon begot Boaz by Rahab. Boaz begot Obed by Ruth. Obed begot Jesse. Jesse begot David the king. Verse 7.
He was the seventh son of a seventh son.
Okay. So that gives us then a little bit more information to go on that we don't have in Genesis. We have it in Chronicles, but let's not get too far ahead of ourselves because there are a couple of stories that we can tell here also.
Why can't they just?
What's the matter?
I don't like that. You know, we have it here, and then you got to bounce over to here, and you're repeating the same thing over again. Why can't we just say it once? And that's not how the Bible is.
No, it's not how the Bible is.
It would be easier to read and understand if it was.
Well, it's maybe not meant to be easily understood.
Maybe. Not me.
Anyone else have any questions about anything? All right, we're going to backtrack 1 second. I want to look at, let's look at, let's see if I can find Nahshon. 1 second. All right. So Nahshon, we have to go to another book in the Old Testament, the book of Numbers. We're not going to go there. I'm just going to talk to you about it. According to the book of Numbers, he was at least 20 years old during the census of Sinai while they were wandering in the wilderness. Okay. By the same account, those of the Israelites who were among the original number they had set out, of whom Nahshon was one, did not survive the 40-year sojourn in the wilderness. Okay, so what we have is this connection between Judah going through so he is the 5th generation of Judah, and he is one of the ones wandering in the wilderness, but he does not go into the promised land. Okay. All right, let's look. Nations. Let's talk about it. Let's see if we can find Ruth. So just to kind of run parallel for a moment, think about the different major things that are happening to the people of Israel. So we have the stories of Abraham himself, and then what we have is the story of Joseph, who goes into Egypt, and then things go south for the Hebrew people in Egypt, and so then they lead them out by the leading of Moses. But none of these things are happening by, how do I put this? Judah is not the key player in the story of Jacob's children. Joseph is. Okay.
Got lost. Joseph came from where?
Joseph is one of Jacob's children.
One of Jacob's children. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
There are 12 children of Jacob.
Okay.
And the woman that he loved most was Rachel.
Right.
And he had Joseph and he had Benjamin from Rachel. Now, he loved Joseph so much that he gave him, some people say, a multicolored coat. Some people say a long-sleeved coat. Whatever the case is, it was a coat that was intended to show that he didn't have to do any work. Okay? If you're wearing a coat of long sleeves, you can't do the kind of work that you need to do. It's very hard. Or if you have a multicolored coat, you don't want to get it dirty. So whatever the case is, and he liked to lord it over them. He'd like to show his brothers, look what dad gave me. Look at how much he loves me. Well, they respond by deciding to do him in. So they jump on him. They throw him in a pit. They take his coat. They smear blood on it, give it to their dad and say, look what happened to your poor son, Joseph. Meanwhile, they leave him there thinking what to do with him. They finally give him to a wandering band of Ishmaelites. Okay. Ishmael being the son of Abraham, right? And they take him to Egypt, where he is sold to a family there, Potiphar. He's sold to Potiphar as a servant or a slave. But he's not the key. One of the Judah, one of the brothers that threw Joseph into the pit, is the one that David comes from. So even there, we have Judah committing an act of atrocity against his brother, trying to do away with him. Okay. And still it turns out to be a blessing. So God works through our sinfulness. God works through adversity. God works through all of that. Okay. So this is actually a good place to stop. It's 8:00, and we will take a look in depth at the book of Ruth in the Old Testament, because she is one of the people that's responsible for the lineage of Jesus. So let's take a look at her life next week, and then we will continue on with our genealogy. We're not going to get too much more bogged down with it, but I just, part of what I want to impress is that we're not, I know I've beaten this point to the ground, but we are not dealing with saints like you would think these people would walk on water if they wanted to. These are not people that were always doing what is right in the eyes of God. He worked with what he had available to him. Abraham even was constantly lying about the nature of the relationship between him and his wife, constantly. And so part of what I'm trying to communicate here is that we look at these heroes of the Old Testament and we realize that we're not that far away from them. Okay, not that we're a bunch of reprobates and sinners either, but we're treasures in earthen vessels. We are fragile. We make mistakes. We hurt other people sometimes. Sometimes we're selfish. Sometimes we do exactly what we should do. Sometimes we're perfect. but we don't have to be, you know, God works through us as we are, is the point. Now, we should strive to please God in everything that we do. But the reality of it is, he's going to work with us however we present ourselves. Okay? I think that's really important.
All this stuff going on, and then you've got the 12 commandments that are
10 commandments.
10 commandments that are
15.
Those things just go out the door then. But
they don't. Because there's the 10 commandments, first of all, nowhere in the Old Testament does it say, these are the 10 commandments by which you must live.
Right.
You know,
there's nothing there.
It's a listing, and we love lists of key things that we do. Do those things and we will find life in them.
Right.
But think about why. Okay. Honoring your father and mother, for example, a classic example. Back in the day, once mom and dad took care of you, you were on your own. And then if they became sick or an invalid, you left them behind. You dumped them. There was no romantic connection between you and your family. None at all. So our Lord is reminding us that we have a responsibility to take care of them, even when they can't take care of themselves. Okay. So the commandments as presented there, most of them are of an ethical nature, which is why we love them so much. We want to know what we should do. How should we behave? Okay. And that, even there, the other ones, you could create severe disruptions between you and your neighbor. The well-being of you and your neighbor, survival of yourself and your neighbor are dependent on those other commandments. There's the keep the Sabbath holy, there's no graven images, and pretty much from that point on, you have, do this so that you may be well with your neighbor. Don't covet your neighbor's property. Don't kill somebody. Don't commit adultery. These are all ways that you make sure that you've got a healthy relationship between you and your neighbor. But it goes way beyond that. Elsewhere in the Torah, it says that if you fail to live up to the Sabbath, if you don't obey the Sabbath, you're to be killed. Executed on the spot. You're doing work, you're dead. It's one of the reasons why the Pharisees were so hyper about Jesus. They were looking for a reason to kill him. Well, you're disobeying the Sabbath. We're going to kill you. So, again, to just reiterate, they're human. They're very human with all sorts of scruples and tendencies to mess up. Okay. But the beautiful thing is there's always that opportunity for repentance and restoration of your relationship between you and God and you and your neighbor. It's always that opportunity. Dave is a classic example, and we'll talk about him when we get to him. All right. So that's what, maybe about 7 generations we've gotten through so far. And there's more to do. It certainly, part of what I'm trying to do is give you a sense of the connections here. So that when I'm reading these things on, the weekend before Nativity, you begin to realize who some of these people are. And it gives you a little bit of insight into their lives and how messy things were, honestly. Okay. Any questions, anybody?
Very good.
Okay. Thank you. We'll pick it up next week. God bless you. Thank you, everybody.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. It is my birthday today.
Oh, sweet.